Let's see how I can.
And also, like that parent assassination, when we break it and publish it to the dark now, all of the facts are far from now.
Can you tell what they're saying?
No,
We haven't really started yet. Beth's going to do the introduction.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Welcome, and thank you for coming tonight. This is a wonderful opportunity to travel across the world uh, in a virtual manner. Bill and Jill McDonald are going to show us their travels in October of 2023. I've heard many snippets of this, but I'm really excited about hearing the whole story. I am excited to go through this just to make sure that you know this is being recorded, and we'll be posting this if you want to go back and review any of the information on our YouTube channel. I just wanted to go over a couple of upcoming events with you very quickly. Some really exciting ones that we're coming up to in the next month. We have movie night next week. Twisters, we have a sing-along next week. On Wednesday, the musical Melting Pot. On the 23rd, we have our enchanted afternoon of stories, magic, and balloons for the young at heart, if you want to come and enjoy lots of entertainment. On the 31st, we're going to be meeting online again for a Zoom presentation on cybersecurity. So if you want to know more about internet safety and the scams that are out there, our professional cybersecurity presenter is going to tell us about that. Also coming up in August, we have a trip to the Frederick Keys game, and that will be exciting if you want to join us there. So I do want to hand this over to Bill because we are all excited about hearing about Bill and Jill because we are excited about hearing about their travels.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Let's see, that's the one I want to share. And you should be seeing something that says African Safari on it.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, it's warning me that it's being recorded. Got it. Okay. Now I've got it. All right. Great. Well, this was our kind of a trip of the lifetime. I'm going to go ahead and get this started. Let's see. Trip of a lifetime for both of us. I don't think we'll make it back at least to this part of Africa. We might get to someplace else. But we were also, this was a trip that once we decided we were going to go there, we figured we better spend some quality time. And so we used 21 days to get there. We were there. We were in Kenya for 17 of those days, and then traveled one day down to Zimbabwe and stayed for 3 days because my sister-in-law wanted to be sure she saw Victoria Falls. And so we went down to see that. Our travel to Kenya when we got started took us about 20 hours total flying time. And so we decided to go ahead and splurge on this one and go full class.
Nice.
Yeah, I need to do something with that. Okay.
Let's see.
Yep, we went ahead and went business class on the thing, and it was worth it. Yeah, that meant that we'd actually lay down and get some sleep since we were going to be traveling mostly through the night one day, and then mostly through the night to get from Paris down to Nairobi. So To orient you, Kenya is in the east of Africa. It's nestled among Somalia, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Tanzania. And it's got the Indian Ocean on the east, with Mombasa being the primary port on its eastern edge. We took our trip from here, and we started in Nairobi, went north to Olpejeta, which is a conservation area near Mount Kenya, which is the second largest mountain in this region of Africa. We then traveled to Lake Navashu and Lake Nakuru, which are in the Rift Valley over here. Let's see, can you see my arrow?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So over here, and then took a plane down to the Masai Mara because it was otherwise about a 10-hour drive on really bad roads. And then back to Nairobi, where we picked up our guide again, and down to Amboseli, which if you look at this map, you can see Mount Kilimanjaro is right down here in the corner. And so we went to Amboseli because we wanted to see Mount Kilimanjaro. Even though we couldn't walk up it, that just being that close to it is plenty. So we were fortunate to have Paul Kioko as our guide. He was a gracious and knowledgeable driver and safari guide. He even knew how to get us to the right place in line. If you notice, we're in the front row to be able to see things because he knew right where to get us into line to get there. Paul is a really great guy, and we've stayed in touch with him. The trip was planned so that we would spend 2 days in Nairobi and to be able to see some of the animals in local rescues before we went to look for them in the wild. So on day one, we ended up at the Sheldrick Baby Elephant Rescue Center. If you are ever in Nairobi, this is a must. It's only open to visitors for 1 hour a day. They locate orphaned elephants in the wild and bring them back to nurture them. And then they release them carefully back into the wild. They even have their own helicopter to get to remote locations.
They also happen to have adopted a baby rhino. We didn't know rhinos could be so cute, but this was adorable. The keeper is pouring dirt on his back to protect him from the sun, and he sure liked it.
He was rolling around enjoying that. The next part of the day, then we traveled to the Kobe Women's Shelter.
Kobe Women's Shelter was established as a result of the drought that has been occurring in the Maasai. It's gotten so bad that they've lost a lot of their cattle, and that's their main income. So they've even been desperate enough that they'll actually marry their young daughters off to somebody who has a lot of cattle to give as a dowry. So this was made up for women, women who've lost their husbands or who need support. One thing that they make at this place is clay beads, which are dried, colored, and fired, and then they make them into necklaces and earrings, and they were beautiful.
And we were greeted with a welcome song. Now, before we start, I want to see if you can make out a familiar Swahili phrase, and I'll give you a hint. It's used in a Disney film, but it's pronounced differently in this song.
Matata.
Yes, Hakuna Matata.
Or Hakuna Matata, depending on. So you get the idea. We were welcomed, and they could not have been more gracious for us. The second day that we were there, that really filled up a full day. The second day we were there, we went to the Rothschild Giraffe Rescue Center.
There's a giraffe called the Rothschild giraffe that is a subspecies, and they're almost extinct. And that's why this place was built.
So they're rescuing it.
So they're rescuing it. You can notice in the picture, I'm giving a little treat to this giraffe who they all have blue tongues. The blue tongues have properties of antibiotic to protect them. They eat thorny acacia trees.
Of the three giraffe types on our safaris, we only saw the Maasai giraffe, which is the one on the right there. They have after you get used to it, you see the markings are very different. The Maasai giraffes look like puzzle pieces, like jigsaw puzzle pieces, so they were pretty easy to spot. On that same day, we got a chance to go and see the home of Karen Blixen. Now you're going to say to yourself, who is Karen Blixen? And some of you may know who Karen Blixen was. Let me help you out. See if this looks familiar.
Out of Africa.
Yes.
You might, yep, you remember it from the movie Out of Africa, which starred Meryl Streep, Robert Redford, and Klaus Maria Brandauer. And Karen lived there and is still revered by the locals for the work she did to improve the lives of Kenyans during her lifetime. The entire area around her home is known as the Karen District, and we actually went back to that district several times when we were in Nairobi because they have really good restaurants there. So on day 3, we'd had our rest and we got used to the time change and we headed north. One thing I want you to notice, if you look through the windshield here, you're going to see animals grazing on the side of the road. That's because the verge on the edges of the roads is well cared for and it stays green, and so it provides food. And so we saw most of the way up to the northern end of Kenya, we noticed that there were people doing their grazing there. And then of course, obsequious baboons that would sit by the side of the road just hoping that something would come in, some tidbits somewhere. So after about a 5-hour drive, we got up to the Sweetwaters camp in Old Pajeta Conservation Area. And so this was the first time that we were going to be staying in quarters that are tents. And so we were very concerned about that. And I think you guys, we weren't sure if we could endure it. Let's take a look at the tent. Oh, there it is. Yeah. That's our tent that we stayed in. One thing we were told at every camp that we stayed in was to lock the front door when you leave and when you sleep. Baboons are very smart and they easily open doors and will tear up things looking for food. So one of the nice things about a lot of the camps that we stayed at was that they were built near watering holes. And that's important because, of course, that's where the animals come. So if you wanted to see animals, this is the view out of our front tent. So we could see them. So we still had time that day, and we got our first game drive with Paul in the late afternoon. He popped up the top of the rover that we had come up in. You can see it up here. Let's see if I got popped up the top so that we can see, and this is a standard practice. It allows you to be able to stand up and take pictures without having to look through a window to do it. We were able to see a white rhino and a whole bunch of other things that I had a brand new camera, and I will confess that I had a lot more pictures, and they all came out dark because I didn't know how to use the settings. But one of the things Paul also did was to take us up to the equator line and allow us to stand on either side and get a picture of ourselves standing on either side of the equator that runs right through that part of Kenya. The next day we went out and visited a rhino rescue center, which is a really spectacular place. Another place where they're really working hard to take care of the animals and the ecology. And this black rhino, we got to meet him up close and personal. This poor guy is old and he's blind and he's also used to people feeding him, so he was no problem. Yep.
You can't see it, but there was a fence between us and him.
Oh yeah, there was some wire. Yeah, just so he didn't come any
But
far
he
out
was
of his
gentle and we fed him.
Yeah. Poor old, nice old guy. The other thing that we saw was a chimpanzee sanctuary, and we were able to actually go up on to raised platforms to look down. But the chimpanzees are the most valuable animal in Kenya because of increased poaching. And as a result, they have taken all the chimpanzees and put them in this sanctuary. And there's plenty of room for them. There's hundreds of acres behind these electrified fences, but that's what they've had to resort to be able to protect the chimpanzees. The next morning, we headed out to our next camp which is going to be in the Rift Valley. We have about a 5-hour drive to do. And before we left Oplajeta, Paul took us the long way around, leaving the conservancy. He knew of a watering hole where animals came at about that time of day, and sure enough, they were there. You'll notice that what you're seeing in here are zebras and elephants. Well, this little guy took objection to the fact that the zebras were sharing the water hole. The zebras, of course, just completely ignored him. So he went to go get Mama and tell her what was going on. Mama intervened. The next thing I knew, the zebras had scattered. They were gone, at least until the elephants were all done. Now, on our way out, of course, knowing we had a 5-hour drive ahead of us, somebody, maybe my brother-in-law, had to find a toilet. Now, we are in the middle of a flat savanna with nothing else around us. I mean, there weren't any trees, there was nothing. But sure enough, our guide, Paul, knew where to find something. There was an outhouse sitting right out in the middle of the field. Now, one nice thing about that outhouse is you didn't have to worry about closing the door because, well, who would see? So we ended up down, after a 5-hour drive, we ended up down in the Great Rift Valley at Lake Navasha. And this was a real treat for us. It is a lake, and we won't bore you with the drive, but the lake was fantastic. We traveled by canoe across this lake. So you see we've got our vests on and are going out to the canoe with this gentleman who took us around. This lake was beautiful and full of all kinds of wildlife, including hippos. Now, hippos are the most dangerous wild animal in Africa. Others might kill you to protect themselves, but hippos seem to like to do it just for fun. They have huge, sharp molars, and they're faster than they look. So during the day, they stay in the water to keep cool, but you wouldn't want to fall into that water. Now, this one was a little bit lazy, so he decided to rest his head on the other one's butt. That's why he got his picture taken. One of the things that happened, our guide, Michael, who was on the boat with us, had taught the local eagles to come and get some fish. So he would whistle and then toss a fish in the air, and this is what would happen. And the eagle would soar away. He did this several times for us so we could see it. So he took us across the lake, and we finally ended up, on the way over, we saw an amazing variety of birds too. I mentioned that there was quite a variety of animals. These are yellow-billed ducks, sacred ibis, Goliath heron, white-breasted cormorants, a pied kingfisher, and Egyptian geese. And that's what makes them different. You can see the eyes are dark and they're easy to distinguish from other kinds of geese that we saw there. When we landed, they put us on a peninsula, which actually becomes an island during the wet season. But this is the only time in our trip that we could walk freely among animals without being worried about somebody trying to hurt us. So We were able to go on to this one and see Maasai giraffe, Thompson's gazelles, an eland, wildebeest. We saw several wildebeest there, even though the wildebeest migration had gone on earlier. Zebras, we could go up close to them, and Jill got this close to the zebras. And then there was a baby zebra that was the delight of everybody. We stood and took pictures and video of that guy. So once we were done there and went back across the lake and got back into Paul's vehicle, he took us to the Great Rift Valley Lodge, which was where we spent the night. It was a beautiful room. We had a beautiful room with view of the forest. But at one point, I found myself totally out of breath because I was coming up a hill from the restaurant. And I was really upset with myself, thinking how out of shape I was, until my sister-in-law, Barbara, pointed out the fact that the lodge sits at about a 7,000-foot altitude. And that was what was going on. That evening, we couldn't find a table. So we pulled out a bed and played our favorite domino game, Mexican Train. So we weren't roughing it too badly. The next day, Paul drove us up the valley to Lake Nakuru, and once we checked in, we went on a late afternoon game drive. We found a Cape buffalo with a white egret on it. Let me back up. With a white egret, the ever-present baboons, of course, and a Thompson's gazelle, which is that distinctive marking on the hind end makes it easy to spot them and distinguish them from the other kinds of animals. So that was exciting. But it was here that we would get our first view of a predator animal. When one guide finds something, he sends out on the radio a location. So whenever we would see a cluster of vehicles, we knew something big was there. If you note the tree that's over on the far left here, and you'll notice that all the cameras are pointing to it. So we had to wait our turn, but once we got up there, we got our first view in what was in that tree. And there he was, the tree was right next to the road. All he wanted to really do is take a nap. He didn't care if anybody was taking his picture. And so he finally found a nice place to put his head and snooze. The other thing about Lake Nakuru is that it has the largest collection of flamingos anywhere in the world. It's so large that if you look for Lake Nakuru on Google Earth, you can actually see the flock of flamingos they have that many of them. And while we were watching these, suddenly Paul heard another call. This time we had to wait a while and then look really hard. The animal wasn't obvious, but it was in that tree that was about 50 yards away. And so I'm glad that I had my new Panasonic Lumix to get the shot. The tree was not far from the lake, and if you look closely, you could see the feathers from the leopard's kill sitting in the tree with it. So the next day, sadly, we had to say goodbye to Paul for a while as we were flying down to the Masai Mara on the Serengeti. Otherwise, it's a 10-hour drive on bad roads, so we opted to take the plane. We liked Paul so much that we called the company and asked and requested that he meet us when we got back to Nairobi for the trip down to Amboseli. Paul took us to the airstrip. In the picture, you might look, it's hard to see, but over here to the right is a young guy on a motorcycle. That young man's job is to make noise with the motorcycle to ward off any animals that might try to cross the runway. So he scoots up and down the airstrip all day and gives the pilots the all clear to land or take off. We also discovered that we'd been sold a little bit of goods. Our first African lie was we'd been told that everything each of us carried for the 3 weeks had to weigh no more than 33 pounds. Each of us were restricted to 33 pounds because of the weight limit on these planes. Now, it wasn't the weight limit on the big planes that we took, but this one plane, they required us to go no more than 33 pounds. Now, what happened was when the pilot and the co-pilot got out after they'd parked the plane, They never bothered to weigh them. They just threw them into the hold and told us to get on board. So this is the inside of the plane, and we flew down. As we flew down, I got a good shot of the edge of the Great Rift Valley. You can see how it falls away here. The Great Rift Valley is full of farms. It is the breadbasket of that region of Africa. And so it's one of the places that the Kenyans are very careful to take good care of. We also, as we came across, our first view of the Serengeti was something like this, because once you get away from the Great Rift Valley, then you're on a flat plain that goes on for miles and miles and miles. If you notice that circle that's in the center of it, close to the center of the picture, that's a Maasai. That's a Maasai dwelling, and they surround it with thorn bushes, because the thorn bushes will keep the animals out, of course.
That's their fencing.
Yep, yep. Now, the other thing that we noticed was when we got to the airstrip, we met our guide, Morris, our new guide, who is going to take us around on the Masai Mara. He is a Maasai, and he wore the traditional Maasai clothing. And we discovered that African lie number 2 was, it's only safe to wear khaki or dull-colored clothing when you're on a safari. We noticed that every one of the Maasai were dressed very, very vivid color and very, very different vivid colors. So we got to know Morris very well in the 3 days that we were with him. He's a family man. Now, he only has one wife, but he's not opposed to marrying a second one, as many of his friends have done. Morris didn't waste any time showing us animals. We saw all of these on the way to the camp from the airport. And then this one, this male lion. Even though this lion was less than 30 feet away, he showed little interest in us. And then he turned and stared right at me, and I got this shot. It's one of my favorites of the trip. The rule is, as long as you stay in the vehicle, you're not a threat and you're not food to chase, you're safe. There are actually, in this picture, 2 male lions, but the other one was asleep under the bush, so we didn't get a picture of him. Well, it was time to get to camp before dinner. Roughing it again. This is the dining hall area on the Serengeti at the Ol Enten camp. They took us to our tents on this boardwalk. The boardwalk is raised up off of the land because they want to allow the animals to be able to go underneath of it. There was one time I was walking across it, and a group of animals came right underneath of it. Impala came right underneath of it. And so they took us to our tents, and you can see these actually are tents. And we were all ready to rough it, but had a beautiful view out the front of the Serengeti plain. But if you look inside, it didn't have air conditioning, and you couldn't drink the water out of the tap. But other than that, it was a pretty doggone nice tent that we got in. There was one firm rule that they had there. You do not go to or from your tents at night without a Maasai warrior with you who's carrying a spear. Because there are animals that come out. The animals come out at night, and they didn't want to take any chances with us. So we were up the next morning. Morris got us up early at sunrise, and that's when the animals are still active. And so first thing we came upon was this giraffe and mother and child at just around sunrise. Those are termite nests that they're eating from. That's one of the favorite foods of the giraffes on the Maasai. They will go and eat termites off of those nests. And then we had this young guy, and I'll jump around a little bit in this, and I apologize for the shaky camera work. My camera was new, and I have since purchased a tripod. To give you an idea, this little guy he didn't realize that his mother had left. He's just kind of looking around. Mom's all the way over there. Sure, I guess this is being jerky. But at any rate, once he got going, once he realized she wasn't there. Beth, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time getting this video to show.
There it goes.
There it goes. He came running across to get back with Mama again. Morris also found this lion pride who had been active all night, but now we're looking for a place to rest and get out of the sun. We found ourselves that the equatorial sun that went directly overhead was substantially hotter than what we're used to, and all the animals there seek shade during the day. We continued, in this pride that Morris found, we counted 19, including cubs. These two young males who were still with the pride may be asked to leave at any time because they're getting kind of old. And the papa male, no matter how old he is, and this one looked like he was a little older, will not tolerate them being around. When the lions get together, when they come in, as the day gets warmer and they settle in, and I'll jump this forward for the sake of time. This is how they greet each other when they come in. Very affectionate. And then they all lay in the sun, in the shade for the rest of the day. One of the things we noticed were how beautiful the birds were. And this one we spotted was easily 50 yards away from us, but I was able to catch it with my camera and get a nice close-up picture of this lilac-breasted roller.
Wow.
Then things got exciting. Morris spotted these two lionesses that were on the hunt. That's a warthog hole over here on the right. They waited a while, but nothing came out. And then they caught the scent they'd been waiting for and began to move toward it. Warthogs, 3 of them, breakfast time. So I'm going to run this. I'm going to run it because it takes a while for this. This lioness is very careful. Now, she's coming in on one side. On the other side of the warthogs is another lioness. So I'll jump this forward a little bit and you'll see her come forward crouching. In the meantime, the warthogs haven't got a clue. She's coming their way. She's hoping to chase them and either catch them herself or have the other lion jump up and grab one of them once they start to run. So she's very, very patient, waiting. Now she starts to move. Now you'll notice that in that picture, there's only one lion chasing the warthogs. We didn't hear any squeals or anything, so we figure, well, she probably didn't get that one. Where was the other lioness? Oh, there she is. Just standing there going, what, was I supposed to do something?
I had a theory that it was a mother and cub, and she was giving her lessons on hunting. And she knew that she wasn't catching that warthog, so why run?
So we went back to, after seeing all that, we got a chance to go back, and everybody rests in the afternoon. We took the opportunity to walk down to the local river, which had we been there during the wildebeest season, we would have seen the wildebeest crossing, but mostly we saw pretty much just the river. Now, the Maasai came with us with their spears for protection and to make sure we didn't go to the wrong place. Because when I look at a scene like this, I'm thinking, wow, that's a good fishing spot. I wonder if I could fish from right down there. That would not be a good idea because all over this river are hippos that are just waiting for you. And in case you think that's a rock on the other side, that's actually a crocodile. And he would have been only too happy to have me come down and try to fish from there. On the way back, the guides taught us to recognize the scat of different animals. This happens to be what a hippo left. That's giraffe. And this is elephant dung, dried elephant dung, which will come back to you in a little while because you'll see that it actually has a use. So we got to had a late afternoon drive. We got to take some great pictures of different animals. There's a hyena. This is a Cape buffalo. These ostriches. We happened to come across these two cheetahs. And what was interesting was they weren't bothered by us, but then we saw this other hyena starting to come across and was going to cross their paths. And we thought, oh, this is going to be something. They just walked right past each other, didn't pay any attention. The other thing was that Paul was able to find this spotted genet, which is a very rare find, I understand. It's about the size of a house cat. And then it got exciting again because Paul heard that there was a leopard. Morris, what did I say, Paul?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Morris, thank you. Morris found a leopard and somebody had found it and we all rushed and the leopard was just taking its time, working its way down a creek bed and kind of posing almost. So we were able to get a lot of different pictures. He actually got up on this mound so you can get these really great pictures. And then the last thing he did, and I didn't get a picture of this, he wandered past our truck so close that you probably could have reached out and petted him, although that would have been a bad idea. So it was beginning to get toward late afternoon. One of the neat things about the Serengeti is it's such a wide open space. You can see storms that are miles away. Rain is a rarity, and so we blessed the rains in Africa while we were there. Morris got us close to an elephant family. At one point, I thought that Mama was going to charge us, but she realized we weren't a threat and headed off with her young one. On the way, we saw some more of these animals, birds, black-headed heron and Hadeda ibises. And then Morris surprised us. He stopped, pulled the truck up, and got out wine and cheese and beer, and treated us to a late afternoon, our last afternoon on the Serengeti, so we could see that. We could see the sunset on the Serengeti. So I got this picture of Jill with this acacia tree behind her. After I took this picture, Morris told us that a week ago there had been a black mamba up in that tree. That's a type of cobra. And he said he hates black mambas because they will chase you. So we were glad to get that the black mamba wasn't there when we were there. Anyway, we waited for the sunset and I got this nice picture of an acacia tree at sunset. And it's a perfect mix. I see Africa as a perfect mix of beauty and danger. Sunset on the Serengeti, we went back to camp, sat around the fire, had some dinner. And then the next day we were back on the plane again. Morris took us to the airport, back on the plane again, and back to Nairobi to meet Paul. Now, we might have flown down to Amboseli, except that this is the Amboseli airport and it's closed, so we couldn't go. So we went instead on a 6.5, 7 hour journey down there on the road.
It was rough.
We went from Nairobi here down the main highway that goes to Mombasa, and then down the side roads. And this last 19 miles that's down here near the word Amboseli was the worst. It was a washboard road. It was so loud that we couldn't talk to each other for 45 minutes. So we arrived at the camp shaken and stirred. On the way to our rooms, we saw these little monkeys that were all over the place. And that was another reason why they told us to make sure the door stayed locked, because they'd get in your room too. But we didn't really have time to do that. When we got up the next morning, this is what greeted us out the front. That's a marshy area that the elephants go to because the grasses are good there. But Paul had something in store for us, and that was a balloon ride. So we were up at 5 a.m. and headed to the balloon launch, where we met Captain Jerome and his wonderful flying machine. Now, I'm going to go back a slide. Note the cloud cover. So at this point in time, we'd come there in the dark, and there was cloud cover, so we hadn't seen Kilimanjaro. As we lifted off, then we could look down and see the Maasai villages that were below us. And then we came up through the clouds, and the Empress of the Serengeti was waiting for us. This is a sunrise view.
It was awesome.
This is a close-up of the clouds that are forming on the mountain. The mountain is high enough that it makes its own weather, and that's really important because the rain that comes onto Kilimanjaro drains down into the Amboseli area. If it didn't, then the Amboseli area would be a desert. But because Kilimanjaro feeds it water constantly, it forms lakes and underground reservoirs of water. In terms of rainfall, this is a very dry area, but that water is essential to the whole Amboseli area. There's a lake that's formed by the water. It all forms underground and then bubbles up. There's Phil and Barb up in the gondola. All of us really enjoyed the trip, and Captain Jerome was a character. He was really something. He turned the thing around 360 degrees so we could see everything around us and see what was going on. So finally, it was time to come down out of the clouds. And we came down underneath the cloud cover and could see the land below us. One of the things we noticed with these trees, and we'd noticed this before, that these trees had been knocked over. And it turned out, Captain Jerome explained that the elephants do that, and nobody really knows why. Somebody just figures they must get mad at something and decide to go push over a tree. But we had noticed that in a couple of other places as well. I'm not going to go through this whole video, but he took us across the land, trying to find a place to land. And at one point in time, he said, "Boy, I hope we land soon, because otherwise we're going to be in Tanzania. And I hope you guys brought your passports, because if we land there." But we were able to watch the animals as we went down. I'm going to skip ahead here. That tree is one of the ones he got the thing low enough that it actually did what's called tickling our feet as we went across the top of one of the trees. And then he told us it was time for us to get ready because he'd found a landing spot he wanted to land on. So we all got into our seats and held on our grip, and we landed. That's how you come down. But you can see there are grips there. It wasn't uncomfortable at all. It was very gentle. When we came down near one of the Maasai villages, and the children and the women came out to see us, to see everything. This was the most exciting thing they were seeing all morning long. And Captain Jerome invited them to join us in the group picture that we took at the end. So we have this wonderful picture with these young children that are locals. And of course, the people that you see on the top of the gondola are his helpers, and he hires them from the local place. So he is spreading out the money that he makes on these trips among the people there by hiring them and using their labor. Captain Jerome then served us a champagne breakfast.
We good? 1, 2, 3. But we open it the real way.
I'm in trouble with this clicking. There we go. So on the way back, we spotted another baby giraffe. And I got this close up of a giraffe eating an acacia tree.
You can see the
and
thorns
you
on
can see
it.
the thorns on it, and that's why they have those blue tongues in the way they're made. That afternoon, after a good rest and a lunch, we went out to see what other animals we could see on the Amboseli Plain. These elephants are crossing the water because they wanted to go over to that area that I mentioned before that had a lot of grass. Saw some saddle-billed storks that live near the waters. A bunch of ostriches that ran around a lot. And by the way, yes, I did try ostrich. If you ever get a chance, it tastes a lot like steak, and it looks like steak too. It's a red meat. Zebras and lions. And in fact, I'm going to back up a step. You notice these zebras are all facing something. You may not be able to see it, but there's a brown blur right above this one's head. And that's what they were watching. They just kept a careful watch, and it was this lioness coming back. She looked like she probably had kittens somewhere. So she just she ignored the zebras, and as soon as she was gone, they were fine. Wandered right past us, went up to this group, it looks like probably her sisters, and did the headbutting thing. In the meantime, we went back and looked at some more zebras. These guys were horsing around, young zebras, having a great time. Spotted a cheetah here. All these animals just kind of roam out in the same area. It's not like we had to go to a different place for each one of them. Wildebeest crossing the road. And I couldn't resist getting this picture. This poor mother elephant had an itchy butt. So she found this rock and went over and scratched herself on it. So the next day, we ended up visiting a Maasai village. And this guy was the village leader and also the salesman. You see that traditional rungu that he has in his hand? He handed it to me saying that all men should carry a weapon, and then he wouldn't give it back, and he sold it to me. I must say that it's come in handy a couple of times for keeping the members of my band in line during practices. We headed into the village through the thornbush wall. And I'll skip ahead here to see
All the women and men were lined up.
all the women are one side, the men on the other. And this is where you may have seen this jumping. And the guys really do some jumping. They go way high up in the air. We got to see some of where they keep the animals. And then we got a lesson in how to make fire. Now, fire is only allowed to be made by men in the Maasai tradition. And I'm going to jump ahead here. They mostly just they had a round stick, and I hope this thing will keep playing. Seem to be having some bandwidth issues. You can see they're rubbing that, and what he has sprinkled down where the hole is that they're rubbing, that's dried elephant dung. They crutch it to a powder, and then that's the first thing that they can get to light when they do this. And eventually you'll see they did get fire. The guy that's there on the left is their doctor. They're the person who heals people if they're feeling sick. So then we went around. We got taken around to where all the trinkets were, and all the women laid out their beautiful blankets and laid out their trinkets, and they would point at one. They would say, "Do you like this one?" And we'd say, "Oh, that's beautiful." And they would hand it to us. And the next thing we knew, the village leader took a thorn, and he wrote on his arm a number, which was 360. And I said, dollars? And he said, oh yeah, yeah. He says, now, and he drew a line and he asked Jill to take the thorn and say, now, what are you offering me for these? So we negotiated, and I won't tell you how much we actually ended up giving him, but let's just say that we were helping to fund the school that they have there on their village. Another afternoon, we're pretty sure this particular cheetah is pregnant. Either that or she had a very good lunch. More Thompson's gazelles. One of the things we noticed, and there's Kilimanjaro in the background, was the storms would come through, but they were really highly centralized, so they wouldn't give water to every place. And this was my final picture of Kilimanjaro in the background with the elephants there. So then it was time for us to get back to Nairobi. We spent a day there. Paul was really good. He made sure that we got restocked with stuff by taking us to a mall. And so we decided it was time then to go down to Victoria Falls. And you'll notice that it's situated right at the junction of four countries: Zambia, Zimbabwe, which is where Victoria Falls town is in, Botswana, and a little slice of Namibia. They all come together at that one point. Coming in from the airport in Victoria Falls, this is going up the highway. This is the Pan-African Highway, just like the Pan-American, and it goes from Cape Town, South Africa, all the way up to Egypt, to Cairo. Well, this time we weren't staying in any kind of tents or anything that pretended they were tents. This was really a nice resort, and it was close enough to the falls. I don't know if you can see it, but just above the center of the picture, there's kind of some steam that looks like that's the spray that's coming up off of the falls. Just like all the other places, they had a place for wildlife to come out and some signs that said, don't go past this point unless you want to be eaten. So Jill and Barb and Phil took a walking tour of the falls. I'd started feeling not too well. It was probably the kudu that I ate the night before. At any other time of the year, you really wouldn't be able to see the falls because the water that comes through is so strong that the mist is so strong that you really can't see it at all. This is a video of the falls.
Wow.
So we were fortunate to go there during the dry season so that we could get to really see it. Meanwhile, in the background, while I didn't feel well enough to go, I got to spot all these different animals that came up to catch the watering hole they put back there. That night we went to the Bunbo restaurant and we got a drumming experience. They insisted that everybody wear traditional garb, and so we did. And they did a drumming demonstration and handed us drums as well. See if I can catch Jill with her drum. There she is. Anyway, they served a nice dinner, and we were there. Now the next day, Jill, Phil, and Barb, because I was still not feeling well, they decided they hadn't seen enough of Victoria Falls, so they decided to take a helicopter to see it. And so this is what it looked like from the helicopter. This aerial shot that you've got right here, this is a road that is the main highway that runs between Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe with Livingstone City in Zambia, which is just on the other side of the Zambezi River. There was one afternoon that Phil and Barb, not Jill and I, went and actually took a tour of this bridge. They were down underneath of it with somebody who knew all about the architecture. Now on the second day, I have to show you this, while I didn't get to ride in the helicopter, I did get to watch the helicopters go over. These might or might not have been filled with Joe, Bill, and Phil. or Jill, Barb, and Phil. But I didn't get to see it. But while they were gone, I noticed that these elephants had started to cross that main highway that was going on, and all the traffic stopped. So that was their big traffic jam for the day. And where were they going? They were going to the watering hole that was right behind our hotel. The other thing I got to see were these striped,
Ringed
ringed
mongoose.
mongoose. And when I say ringed mongoose, that's plural and singular for mongoose. I would say that they shot through. They move in a pack like quicksilver across the grass, and I'm bummed that I only got still shots of them and forgot to take a video how they moved. On the third day, I still wasn't feeling too good, so Jill stayed with me. Barb and Phil went into Botswana, and it was a long, hot trip to get in there, dusty, rough roads. But once they got there, they went on a boat, and they were able to go past and see a place where lions had made a kill the night before. Unfortunately, that's a baby elephant that they had killed. And the lions were sticking around with it. But then along came a herd of elephants. And the elephants chased the lions away. In fact, at one point, they actually literally chase them away.
But then they left.
Yeah, then they left, and Barb and Phil said then they left, and the lions went back to putting 2 guards on the body of the baby elephant so they could guard it. So this was our last evening that we were going to be out to see any of the animals. We were going to be heading back to Nairobi the next day. And we ended it with dinner on the Zambezi. And if you're ever going to Victoria Falls, I highly recommend this. A friend of mine who is taking a tour from Victoria Falls down into South Africa also took this tour just last week and said it was spectacular. You can see there's the shirts that I'm wearing right now, which was made for me by a guy who makes shirts in Victoria Falls, and Jill picked up her dress for it as well. Once the sun started to set, get it to set. There we go. This is one of about 100 pictures I took of the sun setting on the Zambezi River. As the sun went down, we began to see more and more of the wildlife stirring. Now, some of those are rocks, but most of them are hippos. Crocodiles began to come up to the surface and swim around, and some of the hippos began to get out of the water and roam around on land looking for something to eat.
That's the only time they get out of the water.
Yeah, it is. They say the hippos don't like to be out in the daytime. Number one, they're heavy, and number two, they get sunburned easily. So they stay in the water most of the time. And then on the way home, we ran into this bunch. This was a whole herd of elephants that were standing across the road, and all the small cars that were there were afraid to try to go forward. But our guy knew what he was doing. He had a big old bus that was almost the same size as the elephant, and he just started forward, and the elephant got out of his way. So we made it back. The next day, we had to clear out of our room, but we had a 5-hour wait before we could get onto our plane. We had to go actually over across the river into Livingston to catch the plane back. And we played Mexican Train for 5 hours, waiting for the airport transport. The last day, one of the things we've learned on all of these trips, especially when you're going for this long and you're making these kinds of time changes, is that it's important to give yourself a rest day before you jump back on a flight that's going to last 20 hours. So for our last day in Africa, we visited the Nairobi National Museum to get some history, and it's really well done. They asked for a certain amount of money. We gave them more because we said, hey, you guys are doing a great job here. One of the things that they have there is some of the hominid skulls that were found by the Leakeys in and around the Rift Valley. And those are the ones that provide a lot of evidence of the ancestry of humanity. And finally, the one piece of art there was a Game of Thrones-like chair. This was made following the post-election violence in 2007, in which over 1,500 lost their lives. The government and the opposition formed a coalition, though, which ended the conflict. The artist took many of the machetes that were turned in as part of the agreement and created this chair. Kenya remains a peaceful nation until just recently. If you've been following the news, they're having problems in Nairobi right now. That has to do with the fact that the country really suffered under COVID and ended up borrowing a bunch of money that they really couldn't pay back. And they were anticipating that they would be able to build up infrastructure that would increase the tourism that would come and also increase the transport of goods from the Mombasa port out to other parts of Central Africa. But they weren't able to finish it because COVID hit. And now they owe a whole bunch of money, including to China. So what the president has done recently is start to raise taxes, and that's what's causing the problems in Nairobi right now. So a lot of concern about that. So that was the end of our trip, except for one last thing. This was in the Amsterdam airport. This little guy was roaming around. He had one job to do, and that was to collect all the dirty dishes and then take them back to the kitchen. That was it. So that's the end of our story of our 21 days in Africa. At one point, I don't want to say we got sick of seeing the animals, but we were like, oh yeah, another. Let me back that up. Another animal, yeah, another zebra. Okay, but it was great. So I'm going to turn this back over to. Let me find my place here to stop sharing. Turn it back over to Beth.
Bill, we do have one question in the chat right now, and that is,
Okay.
how high did you go in the hot balloon, the hot air balloon?
Ooh, it wasn't high enough that we needed oxygen. We didn't have any trouble breathing at all, so we must not have been up above 1,000 feet or so. That plane is pretty close to sea level, so I don't know the exact height, but it was very, very gentle. We didn't have any trouble at all. I mean, I thought, oh, this is going to get scary. Wasn't at all.
No, it was peaceful.
Yeah. And the guy running it was such a clown. We were having such a great time. He was cracking jokes all the time.
Well, I have a question. Is that a normal landing, or is it something he did for excitement?
You could see the way that the gondola was built, that there were those seats facing one direction and handholds.
He told us we might not get an upright landing before we took off.
给你打开你的
And
视
he
频，
told us how to
打个视频。
sit and hold things and put anything we took with us down below us.
Yep.
So it was not jarring at all.
So, and going above those animals, being able to float along, a couple of feet above the animals and see them all out there, that was just spectacular.
But they didn't like the noise.
Yeah, if I'd have been able to show you the rest of that video, you could see they were mostly running away because every time he would pull the handle to fire the gas to add more hot air in, it would make a huge loud noise and they would took off. So, all right.
Are there any other questions from our panel, our audience?
Yeah, this is Jie. So I have a question. Does this require the vaccine go to the Kenya from US?
Does it require what?
A visa.
The vaccine, like a
Yes.
yellow fever.
Yes, we did have to get a visa.
But no, the vaccine, like the yellow fever.
Vaccine, yes.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
vaccine.
Yeah, yellow
Yes.
fever.
Yeah, we did.
Is
get
it
yellow
required
fever.
or recommended?
It was
It was
required.
We had to show proof of it to the Kenyans.
It was because we went out of Kenya and then came back in.
Yeah. If we'd have just gone to Kenya, we wouldn't have needed it. But because we went to Zimbabwe,
Oh, okay.
came back,
So if we go from US to Kenya, it's not required for the yellow fever.
No,
no, it wasn't.
no, it wasn't.
No.
But
Okay.
I
Yeah,
will tell you that at the Nairobi airport, the security was super tight. We went through, it was at the request of the United States because they are so close to countries that have been known to house terrorists. They were very careful about the security at those. So
Okay.
we had to go through checkpoints, 3 checkpoints, just to get to the waiting area to get on the plane.
Okay. We book a trip this September. Go to 7 days to the Kenya.
Oh, you'll love
Oh.
it. Where are you
With
gonna?
the gate one. That's it's a short trip. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. Yeah, I'm glad you're gonna get a chance to go.
So also you got the visa, right? Electronic visa?
We had to have a visa for Kenya.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that's electronic, right? So you just
Yeah.
send to the embassy?
Yes, you applied to the Kenyan embassy.
Okay.
I don't think we had to go in person. I don't know, maybe. No, we didn't go
No,
in
we
person.
didn't go in person.
Okay. Also, have you changed some currency, the money, so you can use credit card over there or?
Almost every place we went accepted credit cards, and they were real happy to have dollars. We did get some Kenyan currency.
And you could get Kenyan currency at ATMs
Right.
using
Oh.
your bank card
Okay.
in Nairobi. I don't know if
And almost every place we went had Wi-Fi. So
Okay.
even out on the Serengeti.
yeah.
Wow.
You see, they do or they do not take credit card? They do?
They,
Yes, they do.
yes, they did.
They do, okay.
Yeah, if you go to a store, most of the stores, most of the businesses you would go to would take credit cards.
Okay,
Yeah. Also, in those camp, they have Wi-Fi?
they have Wi-Fi.
Yes, they did.
Oh, okay.
Bill, we have another
mean-
question in the chat. It says that you mentioned sanctuary because the chimps needed protection. What did they need protection from?
Poachers.
Poachers.
Poachers are that's the biggest problem that Kenya has with its ecology. The Kenyans themselves are very careful about how they take care of things, but poachers, they have a whole special force that's all they do is go after poachers.
Is it for meat from the chimps?
No, they steal the chimps and they
They cut their hands off.
cut the hands off, but sometimes they're stealing them to take them and sell them illegally to zoos and to individuals.
So it's for body parts.
Either body parts or the whole chimp. It depends. If they get a young one, a lot of times they want to sell it to somebody that wants it for a pet.
Hmm.
All I know is that we saw no other chimpanzees anywhere. And we were told that within that sanctuary, that's where they keep all the chimpanzees.
Hmm.
It also keeps them away from predators too, so that the chimpanzee population can grow again, because it had been really depleted by poachers.
Bill, I'd love to sit down and talk with you sometime. We made this trip in '82, and we were
Oh.
22 days in Kenya and Tanzania.
Oh,
So-
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things have changed a little bit since then. I've
Yeah,
got
I think
about 2 hours of 8mm film.
Yeah. It may have run better than what I was showing tonight. That thing kept jumping around. But
It looked pretty good to me.
Bill, I have to say that you're downplaying your photography skills because I think you did very well in all of your photography.
Well, not all of it was ones he had done.
yeah,
And
I did.
my brother-in-law has done videography all his life and had done it for pay, for business. So he was there to instruct Bill.
Yeah, he was helping me, but it didn't keep me. I'll tell you what, since that trip, I came home and bought a tripod because I realized that's how I could stop the shakiness, and that would help a lot. So anyway, we had a great time. Something we
It was
keep looking back on and telling stories about. And,
a trip from a lifetime.
yeah. The company that we used, you did see that probably as a glance was Go to Africa. We'd originally planned on going with Globus and doing a large group tour. And then, unfortunately, but fortunately, Jill's sister Barbara fell and broke her arm up there.
For
Anyway,
sure.
to the point where we had to delay the trip by 3 months. So we missed the wildebeest crossing. But I think what we got was a better deal because we had our own guide
Oh,
just
yeah.
for the 4 of us. And he's a great guy. He's trying to branch out on his own. But if you're ever thinking about doing that kind of a trip in Africa, we couldn't more highly recommend Paul Kyoko. He's just great. So
And the Globus tour is set and you can't add anything to it,
right.
which is why we ultimately just canceled the Globus part and Go to Africa, who had handled the Zimbabwe part with the falls, did the whole thing. We kind of told them what we were planning on doing, and then they
set it all
organized
up with and they made all the arrangements for getting us from one place to the other. So that was really good. But Jill's right. One of the nice things about having a private guide like that is that he could show us what we wanted to see. He would go and find things that we wanted to see. And like I said, he knew the tricks to get us into the front of the line so we could get right up close to the baby elephants and things like that. So that's it. Do we have any other questions?
Great lecture. Thanks.
Thank
You so much for sharing.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you
welcome.
very much, Bill. Yep. Thank you very much. And thank you for coming tonight. Again, this will be posted on our YouTube channel if you want to go back over it and take a look at it and revisit some of the parts. And I'm sure Bill would love to talk with you about this when you meet him personally.
Sure. Glad to.
Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you,
All right.
guys.
Thanks a lot.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.